Well, this morning we are focusing on conversations tilting them towards women. You're most welcome to our Tech Note. I am Priscilla Regina Naroga. And in our Tech Note, we're going to be looking at the student loan scheme for 2024 academic year, but of course looking at the 10 years this particular government scheme has been in existence and how it has empowered women overall. President Museveni did launch Uganda's first ever student loan scheme in 2014. This was at Kyambogo University, and the aim was to make higher education accessible to all, and this is the brightest and neediest students, to be exact. 9 years later, the Higher Education Students Financing Board is struggling, one, to implement the scheme amidst endless government commitments to fund the board, forcing the government last year for the time to suspend this exercise, which led to a lot of row across the bar from public sector to private sector. However, the mainstream stakeholders have revised the program and resumed it for this year, and to have an in-depth analysis of this program, how it does affect education and improve on the quality of the output as far as labor market is concerned, we are joined by Mr. Bbosa Kizito. He's the Director of Operations with the Higher Education Students Financing Board. You're most welcome, Mr. Kizito.
Thank you very much. Thank you for hosting us and giving us the opportunity to be on NTV this morning.
It's a pleasure. Now let's start with the backbone of the students' loan scheme. In 2014, what was the problem that the president was trying to address when he launched this program?
Thank you very much. The president, in his manifesto of 2011, saw it wise that the government had started funding children from the US UPE, and so many children had gone to school. After that, they started the USE, the Universal Secondary Education. And then they again saw there was a gap that students would finish O-level and were not proceeding. So they again started UPOLET, is the Universal Post-Secondary Education. So that covers A-levels. Then in his manifesto, he said, let's have the scheme that can help all these Ugandans who have been supported by government, because they come from mainly poor backgrounds, such that they can complete the education cycle. So then they said, who will those people be? Strictly, you must be Ugandan. You must have been admitted to a higher education institution to pursue either a degree or a diploma. So this scheme is now higher education. Higher education starts from what we call post-secondary. People to pursue diplomas, degree, and then postgraduate studies, up to doctoral studies. Now, the funding came to bridge that gap, such that people can complete the education cycle, having been supported all the way from primary. The scheme targets people who are pursuing mainly science, because again, as a country, we have big gaps in the stock of scientists in this country, big gaps. So the president said, let's see how to fund people who are oriented towards science, although the law says fund every Ugandan. However, we said, since funding is small, let us start from somewhere. We've started with science as we bring on board some humanities programs. And we've gone ahead to look at the entire spectrum of education. What do people need? How do we fund them? So the affirmative actions, and some of them are purely towards science and humanities, but the people we are targeting for humanities are those who can't do science, like the disabled. But again, there is this other thinking. There are districts where people don't have a lot of science teachers and equipment. Maybe in the future, we shall bring on board such people, because they come from hard to reach places, and then fund them in humanities. But it's still a conversation.
All right, it's been 10 years so far down this journey, and what would you highlight have been the major successes on individual basis for the takers of this scheme, and then also on a national level? How has the nation benefited?
Okay, thank you so much. As a nation, government has so far supported 13,405 learners to pursue degrees and diplomas. Out of these, over 4,000 are girls, and that's around 30% girls. We have been able to increase on the number of science teachers, and those are close to 3,000 science teachers. We have health workers. There are over 6,000 health workers, people who are doing nursing and midwifery, laboratory-related programs, things to do with the paramedicals, human medicine. We have been key in supporting that sector. Engineering, we have so many engineers that we've supported. Agriculture, computing, people who can easily employ themselves around the computer. If you go downtown, you find people who are doing imaging, all sorts of computer-related programs. We've supported them. And of course, there are other programs like statistics, like and then technical. Let me talk about technical programs. People who pursue diplomas in technical colleges. We've been able to support over 2,000. These are the people who are the technicians, people who are doing all sorts of these things in the studios here. The mansions or the builders, the people doing electrical installation, all sorts of technicians. And we think that is a very big milestone for this country. The other milestone is that we've been able to lend and collect. You lend, but our other obligation, especially me, my docket, is to lend and recover. We've recovered over 1.67 billion, around there. Okay. And meaning the students who've funded, especially those who have been funded and now placed and have income, they are returning this money. In other words, we are going to create a revolving fund where all the money goes into the students and it comes back when they're paid as new money to support new students, and the cycle continues. And we think that in the near future, when we are supported, especially in some reforms in the law, we can implement measures to enable everyone to pay back as soon as possible. Although employment is still a challenge, as you know it, in this economy. But also, the incomes which our people get in the beginning are small. They keep on growing with experience. So our expectations can be very high. You've lent out all this money because government has sunk in around 130 billion. Okay,
so let's pick out a case basis there, that if student X was loaned this amount of money for their period of study, at what point should they start repaying back that loan, in consideration of what you have just said, the high expectations versus the realities?
Yes. Now, we fund the students for their entire study period, and we remit the money every semester. This is what we do. When you get onto the scheme and you sign the agreement and you are at the university, we remit your first semester fees. The second semester fees are paid when you present results, meaning that how you've utilized the money we gave you before. Then the results enable us to fund you again. After that, we continue doing that until you finish. When you finish, we give you 1 year of grace period to organize yourself, look for employment, get income, and then you start paying back. And we give you twice your study period. When you do a 3-year program, after the grace period, we give you 6 more years to pay off. If you do a 5-year program like the doctors, first of all, we allow them to do internship and then give them a grace period. Those will be 7 years. And then give you 10 years to pay off. It's possible. Should I talk about interest?
Please do.
Yes. Yeah. These loans carry what we call a value retention fee. Others will call it interest, but of course our Muslim brothers don't want to hear the word interest because it's riba of some sort, but it's not. You add a 7% interest. It's tagged on the inflationary rates of the economy for us to retain the value of the money we've lent you, and it's charged on reducing balance. So you find that someone who took a loan of say 14 million will return around 15.5 million in the 6 years. Okay. It is affordable, it's manageable, and it is really stretched over a period of time. Okay,
all right. Last year we had an issue as far as the budgets were concerned. So many programs were affected by the budget cuts, this scheme being one of those that were affected. And it begs the question, the matters that were presented for the budget cuts and considered for having budget cuts towards the scheme, have they been resolved today?
Yes, they have been resolved.
One of them having been the repayment for some of the students. It's been hard to recover these monies.
The truth is that it's not that people are not paying back. People are paying back, but the amounts they are paying back are not representative. And again, the numbers that pay are still small. Some people are struggling. Like I've talked about the teachers who've supported, and you find most of them are employed in private schools and they're paying little money. So if someone comes to you and says, Mr. Boss, I earn 300,000, I pay rent, I feed, I dress, I pay my medical, how much can I pay back? When you amortize his loan and you see what he can pay back, you say, continue looking for a job that can pay you slightly more for you to start, because he almost has nothing. But people are paying back. Especially, we have people who are paying very well. The nurses, our nurses have been very instrumental in paying back, and we really thank them. But back to the question, the scheme had arrears with the higher education institutions. It was close to around 14 billion. And the budget cuts affected us. And we were guided properly by the minister, the First Lady. She said, let's first pay the arrears before we onboard new students. But we were again privileged that Parliament considered a supplementary. We got a supplementary of 13.9 billion. So after the approval of the supplementary and the provisions were made to pay the arrears, the First Lady gave us the go-ahead to now make a call for new loan applications. And this call is started on 4th of March, and it's going to end this Friday, 15th March. And we are targeting 1,100 students because that's the budget we have.
Yeah, because I was going to say, then you have to apply fiscality in managing what you have right now.
Yes. And we are going to use the money that has been provided to pay the arrears, such that the institutions can, we can pay the debts of all those students who have been studying, and then we also get money to pay for the new students. And this is for the academic year 2023-2024.
Okay.
So it's about the students who sat A-level in 2022, not 2023. The ones of 2023.
Because they're the ones who were affected by that decision then in that financial year 2020 to 2023. Okay.
Yes. All right. They are the ones who should have joined the institutions in August or September of 2023 for the academic year 2023-2024. People are panicking. We've just got results, we don't have admissions. The ongoing call is not about them. Theirs will start sometime in May or June on a new budget for the coming financial year.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Okay, so let's talk about how important this is for the education sector. The fact that there's been this many considerations to help the board continue this scheme, and also the fact that you have not left out that particular category that was affected in that financial year. You're onboarding them to benefit from the scheme.
Yes. Now, yes, we are trying to bridge that gap. Of course, there are people who never even attempted to start school, much as they had their admission letters. Right now, we are telling them, go to the universities or institutions and see if your application can be validated for you to start. We are bridging that gap. Secondly, there are those who are already there and struggling, on the verge of falling off. This is the opportunity. And this is key to the education sector, how the numbers that we migrate into higher education are very small. When you look at the numbers that come from primary into secondary, then into A-level, the numbers which eventually go into higher education are very small.
Yes.
And we want those numbers not to fall, such that we can keep growing them. And consequently, as an economy, when you have more educated people, you have a better economy, because you have people who are productive at a higher level. Just imagine if most of the people were leaving school after P7. Their decision-making, commitment, resilience, they don't have all that. So we want more people. So to the education sector, the key thing is the more numbers, the better for the economy.
Okay, so let's talk about these numbers of 1,000 plus that you've mentioned in consideration of academic year 2022. What's going to be the criteria or eligibility, sieve that you're going to use to select those?
We have what we call a means testing instrument. It helps us to see how vulnerable individuals are, and we look at their education background. Let's take an example. A person who went to, let's say, Arua Primary, then went to Maracha Secondary, and finished maybe in Iraibi Secondary. The reason why he's there, not coming maybe to Kampala and so on, is because the socio-economic environment can only support him around there. So we look at the educational background of these people. I didn't start with gender because this is a ladies' month. We look at gender.
Okay.
A boy child is somewhere on gender. Let me say, the girl child gets more points, for being a girl, and the boy doesn't get them. Okay. So even if you have a Kato and a Babidie will have 7 points and the Kato will have 0 at that point of gender. Then you go to educational background, and then you look at the family background, family size, issues of orphanage, issues of disability, issues of the social amenities which this family enjoys. For instance, me and you might be having insurance, medical insurance. Yeah. So when you fall sick, you just go to hospital and you are treated. Then you swipe your card. People are struggling to get health care. So you look at all that which affects an individual. Then you come up with some results, I mean a score. Now the score makes us look at individuals in terms of, when you rank them, the one with higher marks is more vulnerable than the one with low marks. After that, members of parliament have also recommended that we look at the district quota or distribution, because we look at issues of gender, regional balance. We are going to allocate these resources at also looking at the district where these people come from, and ensure that every district has got an equal portion of some number. The other category will be according to the way these students performed at A level. The district with more people who passed A level will get slightly more than the one which have low performance. Yeah. And in the end, it will help to ensure that districts struggle to ensure higher performance. I didn't talk about where these students go to. We enroll them in public universities and chartered private universities and other tertiary institutions. Today, we are seeing more universities refining their processes to get a charter such that their learners can participate in the scheme. So all those are important aspects to the education sector, because last year the universities which were approved to get a charter, I saw Mutesa 1, the charter is not yet out. Kisubi, University of Kisubi, their charter came out. International University of East Africa, their charter is out. Previously we had Victoria University, Isbat University. They are all now chartered. The number of chartered universities is increasing. So when you look at all this, when you add it up, you see that the students' loan scheme is playing a very important role in ensuring that, you know, the education sector grows and improves.
All right. Well, it sounds like a very cumbersome job, but one that really is necessary to get the, and again, the point is the neediest and most vulnerable in communities and societies, to aid them in attaining higher education, therefore improving on the labor force that we have at the end of the day and the contribution of society and nation by and large. Now, let's come back to the financial end of this scheme. 46 billion plus in debt right now, and you need to, you know, have these monies collected back. But I know that there's also some gaps in the act, and you had earlier mentioned about some reforms that are necessary if the board is actually going to be able to do some good lending and recoveries that are more stringent and more direct to recover these monies. Let's talk about that.
First of all, we are doing unsecured lending. You are lending to someone from Bukedia, from Abim, from Zombo, and you know, with the thinking that when you change their lives and they start earning income, they will pay back. So first of all, we preach to them honesty and faithfulness, because the commitment you have to the country, like, I think this is a very good patriotism program. True. To make people love their country, that it's government of Uganda that has helped you to get this education. After that, you've changed your life. You are now a medical doctor, for instance. There are people who've picked who are out of school for 2-3 years. Now they're at school. Now, when they start working, they start paying back. Paying little as they can, but as I said, the time we give them is really sufficient to pay back. What we need is to strengthen our systems, and we are doing that already. First of all, every borrower must have a national ID, and it is helping us because most of our life is now rotating around your name. Who are you? Where are you? What are you? And we are putting their loans on the Credit Reference Bureau, that when these individuals go to the commercial banks will see this loan and will say, please go back and clear your loan, because if it's reported that you are not paying back, it's an issue of credit worthiness. But that's not part of the law. Now, when we benchmark other countries like Kenya, for you to get any job or any, like people who are going to parliament, if you are applying for any employment, you get clearance from the students' loan scheme, such that they know whether you are paying or complying. And those are the gaps we want to fix. The other thing we want to fix is people to be committed. It's hard because one time we were following up a student who is working in the ministry itself, and he was saying, I have no job. You call him and say, I have no job.
But he's working.
But he's working in the ministry. So it's until someone who knows him said, but you man, you are working in the ministry, in this department, please pay back. I said, I'm very sorry, let me start paying
Integrity.
back. Integrity. So we are working with other stakeholders. We are working with members of parliament. We are working with the Education Service Commission. If it can help us employ them, then we can know where they are, such that we can recover from them. We are doing all sorts of efforts, but of course, when the loan is not tagged on something, like the MPs rejected the guarantor system, at times people put off their phones and hide. But of course, with your national ID, you can run, you can no longer hide. So we think it is still key, and we are building around that. We are also trying to work with the institutions that have large databases, like URA, because you pay against your name.
Yes.
There's who pays your pay as you earn, NTV. Then we talk to the HR of NTV. We are working with the Federation of Uganda Employers. We are trying to work with NSSF. We are trying to work with Ministry of Public Service, such that if people are employed in public service, we can put a code on their loans. We have started already. There is an institution called Uganda Consumer Lenders Association, which enables us to put a code on people's incomes when we get to know where they are working, especially those who are working in public service. And we are recovering. But we have also instituted several channels to recover this money, to make it easy. You can go to the bank, you can go to, we have opened accounts in 2 banks right now. We have DFCU and Scenario Bank, but we're also using mobile money. And other platforms will come, such that people can easily remit this money to us. The most important thing is the people who are paying are really committed, and they are paying. And when we've done what we call them WhatsApp groups, we are talking to them, we are engaging them, and they are responding, although the velocity is still small.
Yes, yes. Okay, let's talk about still the recovery rate for the ministry in terms of these loans from the students, beneficiaries. When you mentioned earlier that much as they get employment, it's not the quality of employment that enables them to pay back as would have been necessary or projected by the board. So in that regard, how can that gap be bridged? Because the reality of the matter is that with zero experience, I'm not going to be earning 1 million Ugandan shillings. Yes. I have to start from maybe 200, 300,000 shillings and then build up, of which build up is also not guaranteed in these economic hardships that we're facing all over, and not just in Uganda, but globally. It's hard everywhere. So how are you bridging that gap in regards to, yes, you have this, but you can actually potentially position yourself for bigger, which would perhaps even mean that they have to go back to school and maybe get a postgraduate or an MBA to be able to qualify for these bigger positions to earn them the money to easily pay back?
Yes. First of all, as a scheme, the board approves programs for support. And the board has been very conservative in approving programs. And there is a general consensus that the programs we are supporting can easily find employment more than others. Let's take an example. A nurse, a midwife, we always find work wherever you go. You move a few meters away from here, you'll find a mother who needs a midwife. Yes. So that one has been key to us, that these programs we support our people in are marketable more than others, and the people can easily find employment relatively than others. That is a big milestone to us. Let's take an example of an engineer. They'll find work somehow, somewhere. More to that, we ensure that these people, we are in close contact with them at all levels. During school, we visit them every semester. We talk to them. They get to know what we are expecting from them. The other thing is, in the application process, they give us the maps of their residences and homes and origin, home of origin. For instance, may I come from a village called Boyija in Buamat's town council. So you draw a map towards that home where people can come like a kilometer away from your home and ask, what is the residence of Bbosa Kizito? And they will locate you. So we can locate them. We can actually locate them. We do what we call home visits to verify the information which they give us. We sample. And we've never got lost. We find you. So we know that recovery is possible, but it is tedious.
Okay.
So we want to use simpler means of working with because now we are dealing with educated people. So when I say we deal with the Ministry of Public Service, NSSF, URA, NERA, and so on, even the telecoms. Now, when you check the systems, and you put in your name, they will tell you the currently registered telephone numbers. So we can still locate you.
Okay, that's interesting. Now you talked about programs that you believe can actually aid these people in terms of employment. They will get a stable employment with a stable income. To that you have added to the humanities programs, you've added hospitality industry,
yes.
You've also added tourism. What informed the addition of these programs in these sectors?
Of course, the scheme has to comply with the National Development Planning directives. Now, NDP 3 indicates that there are opportunities in the tourism sector. And we said, okay, that's one area where we want to support, such that, of course, you are hearing so many hotels being built. We need professionals to run the hospitality industry as well as the tourism industry. But prior to that, we had some education courses in humanities. Persons with disabilities. I have not talked about that. But when we started the program, again, the board supported the education of children with disabilities. So we have teacher education in special needs education and Bachelor of Education in Special Needs Education. Those were the starting humanities programs. But generally speaking, the scheme wants to be neutral. We don't want to take sides. Okay. Although, as the economy, you would really see that where there is more demand, there is more, you give it more supply. Although studies have not been made strictly to say how many doctors does this economy need, how many nurses, how many midwives. But when those studies are done, of course there is a call to do those studies such that we really know where to fill, which gaps to fill, as and when, which numbers. Of course there are issues of gender, there are jobs which are more for girls, and you see that you can support all that, but it is a bit complex because it requires studies, and the studies require funding, which funding is not yet available. Okay,
all right. Again, as you had said, that at the end of the day, you're trying to revise this scheme to be able to use old monies to support newcomers into the scheme. Let's talk about one of the stringent elements that you do have. Section 23(5) of the Board Act states that a person who has has no income for the repayment of the student loan will, within 14 days after receiving a notice under Section 4 in the prescribed manner, inform the board accordingly and thereafter update the board with information concerning his or her position after every 3 months. A loanee can also negotiate a flexible repayment plan within their repayment period, but must complete that loan repayment within the stipulated period. Has this been enforced and implemented? On your side, is it working? And on the loanee's side, are they complying?
We are doing our best to see that it works, but it's difficult to really make it work. We have some individuals, a few individuals, I think they're around 600, who took money in 2014. They have not remitted even a single coin. We are pursuing them.
Wow.
We are soon reporting their loans on the Credit Reference Bureau. So in terms of...
By soon you mean you're waiting out their period time to expire?
Some of them, their period has not expired.
Okay.
Some of them, their period has expired. But at times you find that the person who is struggling on your system didn't complete his program in time. You see, this loan pays only the academic component. It does not meet the welfare components. And we are targeting people who come from poor backgrounds. So you find that at times their education was affected by the poverty at home. Maybe they were not able to get money for meals. They had to go back home, do some agriculture. After the harvesting, then they come back like that. So they struggled. But as a scheme, we would want to enforce the law. But at times you look at the reality and you continue negotiating than enforcing. Because if you say you've not paid, therefore I take a civil matter on you, what does it cure? It may not cure the problem. You rather let this guy continue looking for employment, and then eventually they pay. So the enforceability of the law, to me, is more into getting information. That's why we are emphasizing working with other database handlers, such that we get to know who is deceiving, who is not deceiving. The 3 months, we say that you come every 3 months and tell us what's happening with you, why are you not paying? Someone will tell you that if I travel from Zombo to Kampala, it will cost me 100,000, 50, and I will have to find somewhere to sleep and eat. I rather pay that money, or maybe out of what I've got, I send 50,000 to the account of HESFB than me coming to report. So we are trying to find middle grounds with these people. In fact, there are people who are paying 50,000. Some of them are paying it religiously, others are not, as and when they get it. And of course, we've challenged them. We say, you a graduate, can't you look for 1,500 shillings daily, such that at the end of the month you have 50,000 to pay it to us? And they're saying, in fact, we can afford. So some of them are paying that modest amount. That's why the recoveries are growing, but not as fast. But at some point, when we get the critical number of people who are in employment and in serious employment, you will see that our fund grows. Let me give you an example. Yesterday, a young man came into my office to say thank you because he did statistics. He got a job in MTN and is working as a data manager. He specialized in computing, statistical computing. He told me that, Mr. Bbosa, at the side, I've supported my 2 siblings. He's an orphan. He supported his 2 siblings to go to school. They have graduated. He has been able to upgrade the mother's house. And he has started paying, and he's paying 400,000 every month. He actually got another job. He's about to
upgrade,
to leave, and then pay more. Now, the time we've given him, he was trying to organize himself and his family, because the family is now rotating around him to change
the livelihood.
Yes,
yeah.
And he has done it, and he's very grateful. So we are looking at those individuals.
So do you get to deploy those kind of people to be ambassadors for the scheme?
Yes and no.
Can you? Is it permissible?
Yes, if they allow.
Yeah.
And some of them, you know, people don't want to identify themselves with poverty.
Right.
Some of them say, no, now me have played my part, I've returned your money, let me forget poverty. But there are those who are willing.
Okay.
And of course, the other measures, we want to see our people who have gone to the diaspora. And there we shall really get ambassadors, because we can't be in every country where Ugandans are. But of course, we know the destinations. But of course, not Middle East. Our people who've supported.
They are trying to pay back the monies, and that's why they end up in countries regions like the Middle East.
Most of our people don't go to the Middle East. Although a few may, but not really. So they are going to Canada.
Why that whole element of ambassadors? Because this is goodwill from the government of Uganda to, enable the education, bring out a holistic person at the end of the day. Yeah. And so you mentioned patriotism, earlier on in your conversations, and that would be one of the channels of patriotism. If you pick those that have gone through the system, benefited from the system, and livelihood changing around them, to be advocates of others, not only just joining the system, but being faithful to the system.
Yes. When you visit countries like Kenya, they have supported around 2 million people to go to school. Their scheme started in 1952. And at some point it was being run by the ministry, and it had issues until they started a board in 1978. When you look at the numbers which they have supported, they are very representative. 13,000 Ugandans sounds big, but not big. That's why we want to call upon government to support more. The people who need this money are there. In fact, countries like Tanzania have done away with scholarships. Okay. Of course, my bosses who may not want to hear this, but the truth is, Tanzania has done away with scholarships, free money. Of course, some of us benefited from that free money, but that was the time. The current situation across the globe is a loan, whereby you all borrow and pay back, and other people use the same money to get education.
So the money is recycled.
Yes, you are able to support big numbers. Like here, the students who are on the scholarships are only 10,000 every year. 6,000 go for diploma, 4,000 degree. But if their fund was put into the scheme, we can probably support 3 times the number that being supported by government. So imagine if in this country, like 40,000 people go to university to get education every year, and they are able to start and complete, it would be massive. And those are the numbers which can make the economy take off, because they are specialized in so many areas which can change it. Hence the patriotism, because you are supporting more and more. Everyone will be talking about government. Government give me money to go to school. And therefore, issues of ambassador will be high, because wherever you go, you will find Ugandans who have benefited from such funding. But of course, today people were funded by the scholarships. Wow, they say we are privileged, we are intelligent, we got the scholarships, we studied, and off I go, But I think here, you make people get involved in the lives of others, because they borrow and pay back, and others
But
also got school.
Benefit. Okay.
And consequently, you have more people talking about the goodness of the taxpayers' money.
Has that been presented in the rooms of dialogue to be able to improve on the fund? Because a decade down the road, you cannot be applying the same things. 2014 is different from 2024. It's going to be different from 2034. But yet we have to ride towards 2034, but not with the same systems or reforms or laws. So there are some changes that must be done in order to speak of the future that you've just spoken of. What are some of those changes? What are some of those reconsiderations that government has to make in regards to this students' loan scheme?
Now, the government policy needs to change. We've presented several papers at the ministry and in parliament, and the MPs on the education sector are aware of it. But of course, it needs to be supported. You know, you don't just come up with a paper, say, honorable members, debate this. No, it must come from somewhere. We have talked about it. They have understood it. They want to support it. But at some point, it will come out. And of course, when we get the opportunity, like to meet the minister or meet the president, we are able to articulate some of those advantages. Because, for instance, when you do away with the scholarships, you may not do away with all. There are critical ones which may stay. But you are talking about using the same budget but to support more people. And the advantage is government is not going to look for new money. It's going to use the same money but to support more Ugandans to go to school. And as I said, the Education Committee of Parliament has had it. If they get it in some of their reports and recommend to the ministry, then the ministry recommends us to come up with a policy. Then we can discuss it, deliberate more on it. If it passes, then it will change the course of action.